We could be standing at a unique moment in time that allows us to reimagine what education looks like, not just in this country, but around the globe, and harness agency and activity so that we're rethinking learning. And that's where connected learning comes in. It's a loosely grouped ideal of how learning is more of a process of social activity rather than an outcome or just simply transmissions of knowledge from A to B. And it's made possible often because of new networks and new technologies that allow us to really reach potentials of some of the most ancient and oldest theories of education. And by bringing in these ideas with this new technology, we can transform learning at the civic level, at the local level, at the state level. But knowledge itself is being re-transformed and redesigned into a way where we look at learning as a process of activity. And connected learning builds off of the theories of John Dewey and Maria Montessori. However, technology allows many of these principles to come alive through the scope and sequence of how fast information and knowledge travel. The connected learning builds on three principles of learning. The first is that it needs to be interest driven. Interest doesn't just drive us to knowledge, but it needs to be cultivated. We need to get students involved in learning and take interest over their learning. And that's why it also has to be kind of peer supported. That's the second of the learning principles, in that learning is participatory. And we fluidly share, we contribute. We don't like learn strategies, we exchange strategies. And so a lot of connected learning builds off of that. And the third learning principle is that we need to have an academic orientation. Educational institutions really need to look at this idea that growth occurs when we direct them towards achievement. We need to be orientating students to new knowledge. Connected learning also builds on three design principles. The first being that it's production centered. Learning is a process of making meaning, remixing meaning, redesigning. We need to be hacking, breaking, and building. And also the second design principle is that we need to have an openly networked learning environment where we have institutions that are connected, not just schools, but they're connected to museums, they're connected to libraries, and they're all connected over the internet. And that's where a shared purpose comes in, that we need to have adults and students who have a passion together and that they contribute to a common purpose. And this kind of cross-generational learning, that really allows it to thrive when we can share these interests and goals. That's where connected learning builds on three core values. The first being equity. When we look at education as being accessible to all young people, it elevates and improves the world around us. That has to be the fundamental goal. And learning has to involve social connections. That's the second core value, that we look at relationships and shared practice and culture and identity. So connected learning draws a lot on peer culture, but we have to kind of activate that agency. And that's how you get to full participation. We're talking about learning environments, communities, or civic life. You need to be engaged in your learning. It's not just about the one in the center, it's about all the students. And if we can get them actively engaged and actively participating in the learning, we can move beyond simply labeling kids in schools as failures due to outcomes based on test scores. We need to look beyond outcomes that look to blame students as lacking skills and instead look to connected learning as a way to build students. Because connected learning doesn't look at outcomes in the traditional sense. It's not really about being college and career ready, it's about being civic and community ready. And we want students to be able to actively involve in the social process in democratizing education. To that end, teachers under connected learning are looked more as a designer. They're not, or an engineer. They are creating knowledge in the sense that we have to build new lessons and reflect and kind of engage. And it's not that we abandon the academics, but we teach academics through inquiry. Too often we're at surface levels, and students don't get the time to really delve into the academic knowledge through inquiry of specific fields. If you're looking for some examples, you can check out what the National Writing Project does to embed a lot of these core principles, these core values and design principles and learning principles. DS 106, which started off as an online class for digital storytelling, which is spread across the globe, and Youth Voices. Or if you check out any of the Connected Learning webinars that happen weekly as through a different theme each month, or some of the case studies that are on the Connected Learning website, you will see how these core values are supported through the learning principles